Would you like to learn about AI and the integration of data? If so, this video is for you. Hi, my name's Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of GoCloud Careers. I'm an enterprise architect with about 25 years experience. I'm joined by David Linthicum, who's an expert on cloud and generative AI. And today we're going to talk about AI and the integration of data. So David, as we create our generative AI systems, integration of data is going to become something that's very critical. Could you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, data is the lifeblood of AI. Without data, AI ceases to exist. And it's your ability to build an AI system is going to provide any value to the business is your ability to get data into that system at the rate and the pace that's needed so it can build those models. It's called training data, and be able to come to the decisions to make the decisions that you need. So all your business data that exists within your business are fair game to be brought into the AI systems through integration mechanisms, structured and unstructured data, whether it was the data was created 20 years ago or 20 minutes ago. It needs to have those access to that information. And I think people don't really kind of understand that. I think they can really just kind of stand up this AI system and it automatically knows how to answer questions about their business. No, it doesn't know anything about your business until you're able to integrate the various pieces of business data into the systems to take it to the next level. And I think that's where people are missing the bill. So part of preparing yourself for AI or even implementing AI, generative AI, obviously the most popular instance of that, is your ability to get at access to the information you need to bring into these systems. And so without the knowledge and the process of making that happen, it's not going to have a lot of value to. So people are finding themselves in preparing themselves for AI. They have to, number one, get control and understanding of their existing data, doing things like single source of truth and data hygiene and all these things that have been around for a long period of time. And the ability to look at data integration to take these things from any number of different heterogeneous databases, relational, non-relational, object, unstructured, structured, and then bringing that into the AI models to train the initial models, which is all well and good, but also continuously train and improve those models ongoing. So as your business data changes, your AI understanding of your business data should change as well. And it needs to be updated with current information that should be near real time, maybe a few minutes old or a few seconds old, but nothing that can be a few hours old or a few days old. So data integration is something that most enterprises don't have a lot of experience doing. And normally if they do it, they do so using ad hoc tools, using ETL for the old data warehousing stuff and replicating data all over the place. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability to have visibility into any piece of information that AI system needs at any time for any reason, for any purpose, and your ability to dial into that data, make changes to that data, and do so in a way where you're always going to have access to all the data that the AI system needs, and that AI system is able to see all the data it needs to build its models, improve its models moving forward.
Okay, you mentioned data hygiene. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really getting data into a good, clean format where you're not dealing with junk information. So if you look at most business databases, they have bad information in there. So in other words, sometimes corruption, somebody entered something on a website that, some sort of a fictitious name in there with a fictitious address and all these sorts of things. And if we're not putting policies in place to deal with the cleanliness and the correctness of that data, then we're going to have a data hygiene problem. And there's a couple of ways to fix it. Number one, you can fix it as you push data into the database. In other words, putting protections, making sure people can't put a zip code that doesn't exist or an address that doesn't exist and things like that, or a name that doesn't exist. Or, and this is what most businesses are going to do, the data is already in kind of a dirty state. It's going to have erroneous information in there. The ability to apply data hygiene routines to look at the data, to cleanse the data from some of this erroneous information. So in other words, we're going through every data record, we're validating it, making sure it's truthful, making sure it's correct in state, things are spelled correctly, the zip codes all exist. We're not finding anything where the zip codes don't match the city that the person's in. I'm talking about just information, just customer data now, but this same goes for inventory data and product information and things like that. So when the AI system consumes it, we're not feeding it information that's erroneous, that's going to cause erroneous conclusions being made. So in other words, if it has bad understanding of the demographics because we've had bad, incorrect demographics data, age, sex, location, income, all those sorts of things, it's not going to be able to make the determinations of what we need it to make in terms of customer profiles to help us better to better run our business. And so the ability to deal with hygiene is something that goes along with this. So in other words, it doesn't make sense that you integrate data that's going to be bad. You remember, bad data in, bad data out, and certainly AI is no exception to that rule. So we have to either cleanse it before in the state where it's currently in other words, in its transactional database, whatever, sitting in relational data, object database, whatever, doing it in flight as it moves from the database, in other words, which is known to be dirty. We're cleaning it in flight before it moves into the AI systems. Or we have some sort of a process that sits, that's co-located with the AI system, that does the data checks and does the data cleansing before that data is consumed. I would prefer that people deal with data hygiene at the point of presence, because you're fixing two problems. In other words, you already have a bad data issue. Your operating system's on bad data. I understand that does cause you, the business system, many problems, but it should be corrected. And therefore, data that flows through the data integration engine into the AI system is going to be leveraging the correct, proper, and the clean data. So lots of these decisions are in front of enterprises right now. And I urge them to make these decisions now and understand what the current state of their data is. Everybody has a data hygiene problem. If they're a business that's been around for 20 years, they didn't have the checks they needed. They had erroneous data go in there. They've bought companies where erroneous data came into the data that came into the companies. All these sorts of things. Now it's it's going to be a reckoning day, because now that we have AI, that data cannot be consumed in AI. Because if it is, it's going to be a completely useless system, because it's going to make bad decisions. And actually, my biggest concern is that people are not going to clean their data, and huge data hygiene problems are going to consume that and have it train their AI models. And the AI models are going to make bad decisions for them. And it's very difficult to see bad decisions come out of AI sometimes. In other words, they're talking about demographics and adding discounts to a certain demographics case, in the case where you're selling cars or something on a website, all those sorts of things. So it's just people are accepting it as the truth when it's not the truth, because we're dealing with bad data, because we allowed the AI system to be trained with bad data. So long-winded, but lots of things that need to be considered when you're dealing with data: the quality of data, integration of data, how do you get it into the right state, how you get it consumed in the system, and the ability to deal with it at that level.
It's really the same problem we would have with bias in the systems. If we train the information with biased information, or only showing one side of a perspective, the AI is going to show one side of the perspective. If we train our systems with bad data, our systems are going to make bad decisions, which might be worse than having no decision support systems or AI in the first place.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And bias is going to be one of the things we need to watch out for, because all AI systems are going to have some sort of bias in them. You're not going to be able to eliminate bias completely. And bias in some instances is going to be a good thing, because we have a bias toward risk aversion, for example, and therefore we're not able to make right risk decisions. But we need to understand that the ability to eliminate as much bias as possible is the ability to have truthful and correct data as it's consumed within the system. Because if we have truthful and correct data, the AI system unto itself doesn't have a personality. It doesn't have a religious belief, doesn't have politics. It's going to make whatever calls it can based on the massive amounts of data that we're feeding it. And that's why we're using that, because it can go through an immense amount of data and and find patterns in that data that are going to be useful to the business. And if the data is bad, it's not going to find the patterns that we're looking for. And it's going to make biases that are going to make bad operational decisions, or as you just mentioned with the whole demographic things, that are going to kill the thing. But the other thing too is you need to have look at the information that's consumed within the AI system and make sure that we're finding and locating and eliminating these biases. Lots of tools that go along with the AI systems. We can find biases within the system, and we can start eliminating them and retraining them out of the system. But in doing this for lots of years, my advice is do not do this. You don't want to initially add that bias in there via dirty data. You want to always consume clean data. That data should be checked and double checked before it's consumed in the system. And by the time it gets into the AI system, if the biases should be as much eliminated as possible, because we clean the data as much as we can. So there's not many changes that need to be made to the system. What a lot of people like to do, which is always a bad idea, is consume data that's probably not in the best state, put it into the AI engine, and then they tune the knowledge model after they've consumed the bad data to get out the impacts of that bad data. That's not the way to do it, because you're going to be chasing those issues for a long period of time, and you're never going to be 100% assured that that knowledge part of the knowledge base is out of there. The bias is going to exist. You're not going to be able to get it out of there completely. So that's the wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is to be incredibly picky about which data is being consumed and what state it's going to be in, and making sure that data is in a great hygienic state before it's consumed in the AI model. Fortunately, most of the data out there is dirty. It's got lots of erroneous information in there. It's never been fixed. People know it's in there because they see it every day. But at this time, before we start pushing that information into a system that basically makes the determination only on data, it doesn't use logic. It looks at the data and looks at patterns in the data. It has to be clean before it gets in there. And if there's one mistake we're going to see a lot of people make, it's that they're not going to care as much about the data that's pulled into the system as they can. And it's very much like putting, sugar in a gas tank. It's just going to flub things up. It's going to be very difficult to fix.
Yeah, and I really like that you highlighted fix the source of the information. Don't fix the inaccuracies after the fact, because if we have the good source of information, the models will be clean, and then we can tune as necessary. But if we try to fix it, kind of reminds me of medicine. Somebody would come in for arthritis pain. I'd then give them an anti-inflammatory. Then they get an ulcer, so then I'd give them an ulcer medication. Then it's like, let's not fix a fix to a fix. Let's actually do it right the first time, clean it up, give it good information, and let it make good decisions.
Yeah, and it seems fundamental, but it seems like we've had the tools to deal with data hygiene for years. They weren't invented just for AI, and we've had data integration tools around since the 90s. So this is about leveraging technology that's very well vetted, very and multi-generational stuff that's known to work, and your ability to use it in a way that's going to provide you with a better outcome for a product that you're looking to be dependent on. And so everybody's looking to use generative AI for core strategic systems. So go the extra mile and spend the money and time on getting your data into a correct state. Make sure it's not erroneous, it doesn't have dirty information, corruption's not there, things like that. I don't care if it's structured and unstructured data. If you're consuming PDF files, the same rules still apply. Understand you're going to have a lot more erroneous information in something that's a PDF file because of the character recognition stuff and all the reasons of that. But there's ways in which you can filter some of that stuff out and put it into a correct state. So if it's consumed within an AI system, it has to be that level of quality that we probably haven't reached yet within the enterprises. And it's difficult to have a discussion with data owners that their data is not in a good state to be consumed within the AI system. And it's going to have to be put in a better state. And we're going to have to invest some money in fixing that problem. And by the way, not just fixing it for the AI system as it flows within the system, fixing it to the point you made. I mean, I don't know why let's get to the source of the information and fix the thing once and for all. Get to the core reason that the corrupted data is in place. Some instances I find within application logic, that's the genesis of the dirty data, because it's not doing something correctly and processing the database. So we have to undo that as well. Get it into the right state. Understand how that data relates to all the other data within the business. Do a ERD and a relationship diagram to understand the core relationship logically within the systems. Then have a master understanding of which pieces of data need to be abstracted out of which databases and whatever physical format that data is in, deal with the semantics of the data in flight within the data integration engine, and then the ability to consume it into an AI engine and something that's going to be 100% understood and reliable state. And you're going to save yourself a bunch of headaches. Let me tell you, people who mistrain these systems and they think they can just start from scratch, that's an huge amount of processing and data that has to be consumed to make those happen. It's incredibly expensive. So we can't do that all the time to fix problems with people who are consuming bad data or fixing data that's already in place. Once you have that data that's been ingested into the AI engine, there's ways in which you can start removing some of the impacts of the data. But unless you have some very good AI engineers, and there's not a lot of them out there, and very good data scientists, you're not going to be able to find the sources of that, and it's going to plague you for years. So let's start out clean. Let's do this right, Mike. So that should be the message here. Let's not get into the it's good enough kind of scenario. We have to be we have to understand that this stuff is very precise. We have to hire the talent we need. We have to hire the AI engineers are part of the business. The generative AI architects part of the business. You have to have ethics specialists to understand how to deal with biases and ethics, and you do that for legal reasons because it's not a matter of where you're going to be in court and trying to explain your systems, how you're built. It's when. Trust me on that one. And data scientists who understand how to deal with data and who are able to make some of these core decisions. And those aren't cheap people. And so they're going to have to make some of the core decisions. You don't want to waste their time having to build and rebuild systems, based on half measures in terms of you're dealing with the data. So deal with the complete data hygiene system, the data quality system, put the program in place, put the data integration in place, and do it right the first time, because it's going to be much more economically viable than if you, to spend $10 million in a 1 year to fix those pieces versus you trying to piecemeal it together over the next several years. You're going to spend 10 times that amount, and you're not going to get the value that you need to get back to the business in the business. So,
yeah. And this is a time to get it right, because, it's better to have no AI automated system that could be business damaging than nothing at all. And it's better to have a great system. But not only cleaning the data here, not only will it help the AI, but it'll help the business. It'll help them better figure out their business processes to find areas of inefficiency. It'll help them figure out how to make better predictions or sale prices or marketing. It'll help the business, and it'll make the AI great. So let's do it right, David. I agree with you. Let's start from scratch. Let's clean the data, optimize the data, train the models properly, and then build the system that'll help that business achieve long-term successful results.
That's absolutely right, Mike. And I think that we have an opportunity to do it right from scratch, which is good. And I think that it's going to cost us less to do it that way than it is to try to piecemeal it or take half measures in making this happen. We're going to find that the business is in much better shape for this. If we clean the data, you're going to find that even morale goes up within organizations that have clean data. I don't know how many people and users I talk to that they don't trust the database that the business has because they get erroneous data out of it all the time. Well, if we remove all the erroneous data and they can view it as a single source of correct truth, then that's going to bring them to the next level. And also even the users and the customers that are leveraging the same databases, maybe over their websites or via a mobile application, they're no longer having to put question marks after information that comes out of these systems because they don't see the erroneous information at the rate that it occurred. So you're going to be in a much better state as a business just fixing these issues. And they should have been fixed a long time ago. And you've been paying for them ever since. And then figure out how those things need to feed into the next generation of systems, inclusive of AI. But data is foundation, all this stuff. And we've been needing to get our data under control in a better state for a long period of time. Most enterprises have been kicking the can down the road, and they've just been building net new systems and net new databases on top of it using whatever technology they view as being trendy at the time. And it's just building a big data complexity mess that finally has to be addressed. And I think here's an opportunity to address it, which is going to have value not only to the business and what we just talked about, the pragmatic value of this stuff, but we're going to be able to build our AI systems where they're going to actually be able to work the first time, add value to the business the first time. And we're getting off to a good start having a good knowledge foundation when we understand that everything that's been consumed into the AI database that's trained the database has been in good state, and we're going to get to decisions that are going to be most helpful to the business and most helpful to our customers.
100% agreement with you. David, I'd like to thank you for being on the show today. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to help you in your cloud architect, enterprise architect, AI architect career. David, I'll see you soon.
Thank you.